All right, so let's call the meeting to order. Can you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Mitchner,
Here.
Commissioner Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Summer,
Here.
Commissioner Bryant,
Here.
Commissioner Felios.
Here.
Great, everyone's present. I'll first say the statement at the top. This meeting is being conducted with a virtual
You don't have to
component.
say- You don't have to say it anymore.
You don't?
Nope.
Oh, well, because it's all so redundant and silly. They're on the call, they already know. All right, so now we're on to item 3, the minutes approval. If anyone wish to discuss anything about the minutes?
Yeah, we captured a few complicated conversations. I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
I'll second it.
I'll third.
And congratulate you on capturing all. Tracking.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment about the minutes? I don't hear any. So moved and seconded. Shall we go ahead and vote?
Okay, Commissioner Mitchner.
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Felios.
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis,
Yes.
Chair Summer.
Yes. All right, that's approved. Now we're on to oral communication from the public. I'm going to read this part, though. This portion of the meeting is for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter that's not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, and the state law prohibits the commission from acting on any non-agenda items, and staff also won't respond to your comments. Does anyone wish to make a comment on an item not on the agenda? All right, is there anyone in the online component? Okay, so there, we will move on past item 4, then on to item 5, new business. First item 5.1 is the recycled water reservoir siting study and site options, project 23-40. First, I'll turn it over to John Marchant, the Community Services Director.
Good evening, commissioners. Just wanted to do a little introduction as far as what you are tasked with this evening regarding this item. Number one, staff is interested to make sure that we can move forward with Charleston Park as the preferred option for the siting of the reservoir. And number two, it would be helpful to see if we could determine if the PRC has a preference for a buried versus a semi-buried. If we have consensus, that's great. If not, that's okay too. But if we're able to take one off the table, we'll focus on one compared to the other. And so those are the 2 items we're looking for, is location and then buried versus semi-buried. Get your input and we'll be able to go back to city council. Also provide the information that we receive from you, and then have them give us direction to move forward with the project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason Chow, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about the project and next steps.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Evening, my name is Jason Chow. I'm a senior civil engineer in the Public Services Division in Public Works. I'm presenting the recycled water reservoir siting study, which is designed to evaluate the ideal location to construct a recycled water reservoir and pump station in North Bayshore. The purpose of this presentation is to highlight different alternatives which the siting study presents, discuss the evaluation of each site, and receive feedback from the PRC on the staff recommended site location and preference of options. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Salman Husseini, the project manager on creating the slides and presentation. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today, so I'm here in this place. To provide some background, the city owns and operates a recycled water distribution system in North Bayshore, which is an integral component of the city's water supply portfolio. Recycled water is a drought-proof water source and is commonly used for landscape irrigation, toilet flushing, and cooling towers. Here are some examples that we currently have in the North Bayshore. On the left is recycled water being used at Microsoft. On the far right is an image of the cooling towers that are used at the Gradient Canopy, which is otherwise known as Charleston East. And there's buildings in the North Bayshore which highlight dual plumbing, as you can see the purple pipe that's shown in this building. In March 2022, an update to the city's recycled water feasibility study was adopted by council in which the recommendation was to proceed with full build out of the recycled system in North Bay Shore and to evaluate a future expansion to East Westman via Middlefield Road. The purple pipe you see on the map highlights our existing system. Orange pipes are future expansion pipes in North Bay Shore. The blue shows the alignment via Middlefield to East Westman, and the red lines highlight the distribution network in the East Westman area. The current recycled water system with only pipelines for distribution have issues meeting maximum day recycled water demands, which is the maximum amount of recycled water used in any given day. In addition, our system is also subject to pressure fluctuations from the Palo Alto plant. Having a recycled water reservoir will help the city meet max day demands, stabilize pressure flows in the system by providing storage, and make the system more reliable for our customers. As a result, the recycled water feasibility study update recommended we install a recycled water reservoir and booster pump station in North Bay Shore to help serve our existing customers as well as those in the future. The reason we have brought this project to PRC is that a couple of the proposed project sites are located at existing or future park sites. From the recycled water feasibility study update, there are 3 locations identified and are being included in the siting study evaluation for the construction of the future recycled water reservoir and pump station. We have Charleston Park, Site A, Site B, Terminal Boulevard, and Site C, the future Joaquin Neighborhood Park. Since the soil conditions were unknown initially, 3 reservoir alternatives were being evaluated at each site, including a fully buried, semi-buried, and above-grade reservoir option. After soil analysis confirmed that implementing the buried and semi-buried options were viable, staff ruled out the above-grade options as it was deemed too visually obtrusive. At the Terminal Boulevard site, the above-grade and semi-buried option would heavily impact the current roadway circulation and direct access to Shoreline Park, so was also removed from consideration. Now I'm going to talk through each site, starting with Charleston Park. Charleston Park is situated between Amphitheater Parkway and Charleston Road, between the Google Gradient Canopy and Google headquarters. At this site, the fully buried option would be located underneath the existing water feature, while the half-buried option would be tucked into the existing hillside. Both options would remove the existing water fountain footprint, including all hardscape, and replace it with landscaping. Additional space is required to house the pumps in a building either above grade or potentially below grade. The picture on the right shows the tank in relation to the park as a whole for reference. Again, these are just conceptual layouts. Site B, Terminal Boulevard, located at the north end of the city, Terminal Boulevard, close to the Palo Alto border. This site is adjacent to existing commercial buildings and south of the Coast Casey forebay. The below grade option proposes a rectangular reservoir underneath the roadway, but the pump station will likely still need to be above grade. As stated previously, the above or semi-buried was not further evaluated since the reservoir would impact access to Shoreline Park and the existing roadway network. Site C, future Joaquin Neighborhood Park. This is the location of the future park that will be dedicated to the city as part of the Google North Bay Shore Master Plan. Since this location is not yet finalized and we're uncertain of Google development timing in the North Bay Shore area, we are unsure of when this park may be constructed in the future. At this site, this reservoir could be either fully buried or half buried. We realize that these options may be a little difficult to kind of visualize based on plan view schematic drawings. So we've included some examples on the next few slides of what some of the options might look like. Buried reservoir examples. Here are 4 examples to kind of see what the finished project might look like if it was completely buried. You guys might be familiar with the one in Mountain View at Grand Reservoir. We'll be able to design a buried option to incorporate park features like the examples shown here. I did want to highlight the reservoir that we were kind of proposing is kind of similar in terms of size as the Laguna Beach and Chandler exhibits here. So it'll be a little over 2 million gallons, but in general, you can kind of see how that would kind of look. In terms of the semi-buried reservoir examples, half-buried tanks are another potential option. Blending the tank in with the new or existing landscaping or tucking it into a hillside are some ideas we could implement. terms of evaluation criteria, in general, the evaluation criteria has been split up into 4 main categories: pre-construction, construction, post-construction, and costs, with each of the subcategories assigned a specific score, ranked 1 through 5 for each site based on specific criteria, which includes environmental and community impacts. For example, the constructability score for one site may score lower due to site constraints or materials and or equipment. Another factor is cost, where the buried options is a bit more expensive due to additional excavation and construction that's required. In terms of results, Charleston Park scored the highest. This site is located on existing city-owned property and would not require any additional land acquisition or easements. It would require the least amount of new off-site recycled water improvements to be constructed. This site would have minimal impacts to the use area of the park if we went fully buried with a fully buried option. Staff could still consider the semi-buried option, as it would be a bit cheaper to construct and allow us to be creative in its design by incorporating other park features similar to the examples that were shown previously. For Terminal Boulevard, it really wasn't a desirable option as a buried reservoir. It would require quite a bit of utility relocation of our existing infrastructure. We have storm, sewer, and water mains located in Terminal Boulevard. We would have to extend the recycled water mains to this location because there isn't anything currently there. And any type of operations and maintenance concerns could create access issues for events at Shoreline Amphitheater, for city maintenance staff and members of the public who frequent the trail. Additionally, it could have potentially significant environmental impacts as it is immediately adjacent to the bay. In terms of Joaquin, although this is a new park and timing the implementation of the reservoir with the construction of the park would be ideal, the park is really contingent upon when Google plans to design and construct. This timing uncertainty does not align with the project schedule to construct this reservoir. Seeing as how Charleston Park scored the highest, I'll dive a little deeper into the site and the options we have. Here's a vicinity map of Charleston Park, as shown in the earlier slide. Again, it's Amphitheater Parkway to the north, Charleston Road to the south. It's sandwiched between Googleplex and Gradient Canopy. We have some renderings that kind of at least help you visualize what a reservoir in this location might look like. This slide here shows the location of the buried reservoir in orange. It will not be visible to the public. Please note there will be a pump station building added to the site. Again, it could be above grade or below grade, but it's not shown in this rendering. This new building can match the existing features at the park or be designed based on community feedback. And then next we'll be moving on to the semi-buried reservoir option. Here's a conceptual landscaping plan of the semi-buried option. We have the opportunity to update the park to include new pathways, native gardens, and shade trees while keeping flat grass areas for play. For this slide, the pump station is shown just south of the reservoir, which is located just out of the Burrowing Out HOZ. This pump station location will improve operational efficiency and ease of maintenance of the reservoir. This slide shows kind of an aerial view. We're looking southwest from Amphitheater Parkway. This rendering kind of shows the landscaping on the surface of the reservoir to match the park aesthetics. As shown in some of the other examples of reservoirs, there are many things we can do with this option, including different types of landscaping, athletic courts, or sitting areas. Similar to the buried reservoir, here are existing conditions versus a rendering of the finished semi-buried reservoir. This conceptual drawing shows the reservoir about 7 feet above the ground surface and has landscaping surrounding it to mask the exterior. I know it's kind of hard to see. Although it's difficult to see, the intent was to showcase how the semi-buried reservoir can be blended into the park. So in terms of summary, Charleston Park is determined to be the most feasible location for a recycled water reservoir per the draft siting study. Staff will present the study to City Council for direction on an approved location to proceed for design. Once project design begins, at which point staff will solicit public input and present the conceptual layout plans to PRC for review and feedback. And we're currently anticipating that to be within a year. Initially, our project timeline for the design of the reservoir and pump station is about 18 months, while the construction is anticipated to be about another 18 months. So for tonight, staff would like to receive some feedback from the PRC on A, this PRC support Site A Charleston Park as the ideal location for the reservoir and pump station. And then B, is there a preference for either a buried or semi-buried reservoir option? That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for staff? Go ahead.
Did you say that the semi-buried option would be about 7 foot tall?
As shown in that, the visual, yes, it was shown to be that high, yes.
So it would basically be like a cylinder, and then you could put something on top of the cylinder or plant trees around it.
That's correct.
And in either case, you're thinking the pump station next to the restrooms.
No, the pump station actually, we did a little more internal evaluation and we thought that it might be better to have the pump station closer to the reservoir, away from the restrooms. I think we had, let's see if I can pull up this slide. It kind of highlighted a location where maybe it's easier to see here. You can kind of see this is, let me try this pointer out. Yeah. Here's the location of where the pump station could lie as part of this semi-buried reservoir option.
And the umbrella structure is
It could be, I mean, it's
just an idea.
It's just an idea. These are just
Okay.
ideas, really. It's just good to kind of see how it could look. But that's kind of something that we just kind of thought.
So just in terms of orientation, to the right is where the canopy or structure or whatever it's all, or where orient me towards, where's the north?
We're on Amphitheater Parkway in this visual, and to the left is actually where the gradient canopy would be. It's off the screen. To the right is the Google HQ, the headquarters on the right. You can kind of see portions of the building, but yeah.
North is down.
North is down, so
Down from
the
the
bay is
slide.
here. The base behind me.
Right,
Okay.
right.
thank
Bay's
you.
behind us, yes.
Any other questions?
I just, oh, go ahead. I was gonna just ask, I live somewhat close to Graham and we're kind of used to, we go there to play a lot.
Sure.
So a buried option would be much like Graham, I would assume, where the pump station's on the other side of the track and the
It could be in terms of, I mean, that it could be something when we come on design, that could be how it would look. But definitely the reservoir could definitely be fully buried, similar to how Graham looks.
and at Graham, the pump station is very close, back to back with homes. Has there been any complaints with regards to noise from the pump area or anything like that?
I
Hi, I can answer. Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director. We actually have pump stations at Graham and also on Miramonte Avenue, right next to homes, like within 10 feet. And my staff has never received noise complaints.
Thank you.
So Commissioner Davis?
Is there any significant cost difference between the buried and semi-buried?
Yeah, I think there was like, from our initial draft siting study, there was like a 10% capital cost difference between the semi-buried and the fully buried option.
And I'm sorry, you referenced the burrowing owls. Is that on this site? You mentioned it near the pump station.
Well, there's a burrowing owl HOZ zone. Go ahead.
It's referenced as the habitat overlay zone for burrowing owls, and it's we have it on a map as within the precise plan. It is closer to the amphitheater side, and so we are not entering into that identified zone.
There's no existing burrows.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Mitchner?
Yeah, I had a few questions. So one of them, again, is just to follow up. I was prepared to ask about the height. It looked from the drawings that it's a 25-foot total height.
Correct.
And so, yeah, so I mean, I wasn't expecting a 7. I mean, is that a variable thing and you just did 7 for the drawing? Could it be 12? I mean, it seems like if it's only 7, it's almost a why bother?
Yeah,
I
we
don't-
just picked 7 feet in terms of how the renderings would look. I'm sure there could be varying heights of how the semi-buried option, extends out of the ground. But yeah, it could, could be 10, 12, but 7 feet was what we had selected as. for the
Did you
visual.
save more? Well, you said there was a 10% difference. I'm assuming that it costs more to dig deeper. Is that,
Correct, that's correct.
so there's, okay, so.
So
how-
it would range, I guess, depending on how much would be exposed, right? How much of the reservoir exposed.
Okay, then a couple other questions. These are not as important, but, so with the terminal avenue, it talked about egress from concerts. I haven't been there in a while, but do people just park there and walk? I mean,
They actually guide
and roads
a
go through-
lot of the traffic from the parking lots go through Shoreline Park, out the maintenance road, out to Terminal, and then out to
So
101.
they open up the maintenance road?
Yes.
Okay, because it's not normally a,
Correct. For egress of concerts, it is open to get people out.
okay, I got it. Then my other question, and you may not know this, maybe Ronit might even know. I thought there was an agreement a while ago where Mountain View was gonna sell a bunch of its water to East Palo Alto. Are you familiar with that? And is
I
that
can-
recycled or is that just regular
I
water?
can help. Actually, we were selling our wastewater
Okay,
to Valley Water. For them to, they're actually, they put a pause on the project. They're actually in negotiations with Palo Alto to build an advanced water purification project right on Terminal in San Antonio, but on the Palo Alto side, so on the west side of San Antonio, at the end of Terminal. But they put a pause on that project, but they were gonna treat the wastewater from the Palo Alto plant, which we contribute our wastewater in Palo Alto and Stanford, East Palo Alto, Los Altos, all of their sewage goes to the Palo Alto plant.
okay,
So they're buying rights to our wastewater. They were gonna take it and treat it more. And then they were going to build a 20-something mile pipeline down to Campbell to recharge their groundwater.
okay.
So I think that's what you meant by selling our.
Yeah, I mean, it was an agreement. It was probably 10 years ago.
No, actually, it was only 2019.
Oh, right.
So it's still in contract, but right now they put a pause on the project.
All right. And is that still considered to be a good?
So right now, until they, so actually, as part of that agreement, we're Palo Alto and Mountain View are considering another advanced water purification project to enhance the quality of our recycled water. So that project is in design. That's gonna be built at the Palo Alto plant versus the other one I was telling you was another parcel. So that, for that project, for the wastewater rights, Valley Water is contributing $16 million to the Mountain View Palo Alto project. And before they build it every year, they are giving us $100,000. It's split 50-50 between us and Mountain View. So every year right now for the contract's duration, we're receiving $50,000 until we build the actual treatment plant. And then when we do bid out the project, they're gonna give us $16 million to pay for it.
Thanks.
Any further questions, Jeff? Okay, Commissioner Davis had another thought.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't think of this earlier. In the staff memo, I recall seeing a comment about heritage trees related to the semi-buried option. The potential loss of 3 Deodora cedars. I'm wondering.
That was for the pump station on the Joaquin.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think with the transition of having that pump station actually relocated closer to the reservoir, that would eliminate that, the removal of those trees that were mentioned in the memo. So we kind of did a little further evaluation on that and kind of reconsidered this could be a better location for the pump station.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one more. If you haven't had a chance.
Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay, just out of curiosity, the piping to East Wisman, is that a separate project after this, after the reservoir?
That's definitely a different, separate project, with per council's direction, we were supposed to build out North Bay Shore first, and we're gonna focus on building out North Bay Shore. And then subsequently, we'll look into expanding the system down to East Wisman.
Thank you.
Great. I had one question that hasn't been answered yet. So with the buried option, would the amount of grade change that currently exists, because the actual Googleplex is higher than the park that look, I didn't count the stairs, but probably 7 or 8 feet. Would that same amount of slope be there with the new underground location? In other words, the area that's currently sloped would remain sloped.
I think a lot of it would be just, again, maybe it's dictated on how the future design of the park is gonna look. The Googleplex is kind of, they're on their side, they have their height elevations, which are different than Charleston Park per se. But, again, it kind of depends on how the design's gonna work, once we get to that point. I just know that, with the fully buried option, pretty much it'll be, you won't be able to see where the reservoir would really be. I mean, it'd be pretty.
So
pretty
are
clean
you
from
saying
there.
it basically fits in the plaza that's currently there?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
so presumably the slope would still remain.
It still remain, or we can work on some maybe potential design, which could maybe doesn't make it look as big,
Okay.
the delta, yeah.
Thank you. So I think we're ready to go to public comment on item 5.1. Is anyone interested in commenting on this in the room? Okay, I'm seeing shaky heads. What about online?
No.
No, okay. All right. So I guess we can turn then to the commission to discuss and make a motion. Would anyone like to start?
So I can start.
Okay.
So so first of all, I thought it was helpful to read the full report and actually learn a little bit about our local wastewater recycling process. So I thought that was interesting. With what I know now, I would support the Charleston site. I'm somewhat ambivalent and different between the fully buried and partially buried options. I'd probably have a stronger opinion between those two if we were to see a more clear schematic of how that entire area would be re-landscaped under each alternative. So if we didn't decide between buried and unburied tonight, if we do, we do, and if we don't, it would be interesting to see the different designs that might come back to us later. I will say that, I found the mezzanine look on the partially buried to be creative. I thought it was a creative use to sort of a way of integrating the sloping terrain. And it creates an interesting sitting area. I mean, just based on that one, but obviously there's lots of other ways that could go. I don't think there's really much to say on the other options. I thought Terminal Boulevard was by far the lowest ranked based on the criteria. And Joaquin Park just isn't really viable due to 15 to 30 year delay. So sorry, those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Anyone else have a thought? Why don't we just go down the
Sure.
line?
First of all, thanks for the report. I thought the report was helpful. The visuals were real helpful for us. And actually the other commissioner questions were extremely helpful, whoever saved me from asking a lot. So I support site A. I'm, I guess, also ambivalent on a partially integrated and underground, since it doesn't seem there's significant cost options. I agree with Commissioner Mitchell. I actually think there are opportunities with the half buried. People like edges, for as a spaces to sit and view things. I think that could be really interesting. Interestingly, if you go back to your slide 12, I noticed that the size of the structure is sort of roughly equivalent to the size of the utility structure that's on the northeast side of the grade canopy, that similar round dot. And that has a very interesting treatment, sloping treatment with interesting plantings on it. And I guess my only real suggestion here is really about the design phase of this from a park standpoint. And that be able to proceed sufficiently in advance of the hardcore engineering that if any creative ideas do come up, rather than just a cylinder sticking out of the ground, that they wouldn't be precluded from having already made engineering decisions. So, you know, civil engineering is great at solving technical problems that have to comply with codes and costs and things, but sometimes they can inhibit otherwise creative designs. I've seen that. I won't mention PG&E, whatever stations. So I think I would support the site A and the partially buried option. I'd love to see this go out to like a design competition and cultivate really interesting ideas of how to take advantage of this new structure in the park. I'm not sure if the city would do that, but that would be my opinion. The renderings are great. The specific park features presented in those renderings, which I took to be completely illustrative, I didn't like. So I think something really creative could happen there. So I support it.
Great. Commissioner Bryant?
Sure, yes, thank you. So first, the very easy part, the site in Charleston Park makes complete sense. The time for Joaquin is we need the reservoir now, so there's no that falls off the discussion. And terminal has so many problems with soil and the circulation that it doesn't seem really worth discussing much. And I think Charleston, besides the fact that the city needs the reservoir and that's a good place for it, the park itself is amazingly dated. This plaque there from 1996, Society of Landscape Architects or something, gave it a prize in 1996 when Silicon Graphics was the best thing the world had ever seen. It's just amazingly dated right now. And right next to it, there's the absolute marvelous planting that Google has done. And so the park is dated per se, and then there is a splendid design and landscaping that Google has placed in there. And it's a little pathetic. So to me, if we put in the reservoir and then we continue the Google idea of the native planting, it's very interesting. We basically, it's a win-win. The city has a reservoir and the citizens, the residents have a beautiful new park that will accentuate, go in the direction of what we want in North Bayshore, the natives, the nature, the open space. I think it would be absolutely wonderful in looking at the 3 deodar cedars and all the other trees that are in that area. They are so unhappy. All the planting there is so unhappy that I looked at the heritage trees and said, they don't want to be here. Even the oaks that have been there for quite a long time, they don't want to be there either. There is nothing good about the planting there, so the city could have a wonderful opportunity to do something very interesting. And Google has all the plant lists and all the ideas for that kind of thing. If we could work with them, that would be wonderful. I would not. It could be done semi-buried, it could be done fully buried. On the whole, I would prefer fully buried and leaving an open area. Then there's the hill where there was work equipment there, but I guess that's North Bayshore, and kind of leaving a contour that's interesting and not putting in more playing fields, more stuff, but leaving it open would be my preference. Clearly, if the cost is humongously if there's a humongous cost difference, if it's really difficult, really interesting design could resolve that. I would prefer buried, if it can't be done, it can't be done, but I think the design needs to be an integral part of the plan, like Commissioner Davis said, not have the plan and then we'll add the design at some stage. This is a gift to the residents and should be a full gift and complete, a complete package. Those are my comments.
Mr. Felios?
I like Charleston as the option, especially considering the issues that the city's going through and trying to keep the current schematic and the waterfall feature working with and the money that's having to put into it to keep it going. So to me, and with Terminal and Joaquin really being problematic as your choices, Charleston's a great choice. I prefer fully buried. And I think that leaves us more flexibility in some of the things that Coach Bryant's talking about, whether it be the native plantings, areas of turf still, just, the world is open when you have a big open area. And that's why I like fully buried, especially if the cost is only a 10% difference. Spend the 10% and leave yourself the opportunity to design a wonderful park on top of it. So I would, I will, obviously, if the majority would like semi-buried, I'm not going to balk, but my personal preference would be to completely bury it. And thank you for a great report, by the way. Love the scoreboard. That's the athletic coach in me. I love the scoreboard.
Great, well, you got this table thinking the semi-buried is good and that table thinking the buried is good. So I guess since I'm in the middle, I think we all did agree that Charleston Park is the best solution, and I'm on that same page as well. I think this makes sense to consider any of the other sites any further. I think I'm leaning toward a buried tank. We could make it work with the semi-buried, but doesn't seem to be too much disadvantage to proceeding with the buried version, so I'm okay with that. As far as, I know we're just talking about the bigger picture for this park, but when we come back and do the conceptual design, I would like to see an equivalent level of amenity. In other words, when we take the fountain out, let's not just put some grass back. Or plants back, it needs amenity. Because it's currently a fairly high amenity park. The space looks great in plan view. It's a pretty innovative design in plan view, looking down from the sky. But when you get out there, having to walk those paths, it makes it unnecessarily long and you're going, but I want to go over there and I can't. So I think we can definitely make improvements to both the plant palette. Actually, this northern end of the park was replanted recently, I think John mentioned, by Google. And if we could, kind of incorporate that type of palette, it would be wonderful. But I would like to see some, equivalent something there that we can talk about later. But rather than just plants and a canopy, I think it needs to be something that's distinctive and memorable. It's interesting. I tried to figure out where you could park to use this. And you have to trespass.
There's some open, up on the upper side.
Yeah, it's across the amphitheater parkway. Okay,
I
well,
parked in one of the.
anyway, where I'm going with this is it's not totally obvious. I don't see this park as being something for the residents of the city. It's for the employees of the city. And I'm okay with providing a park for the employees of the city. So, and then eventually there'll be residents around. And there's gonna be a great trail system that connects it up, and there's already a pretty good trail system, and I suppose if I had biked down there, you know, if I'd had enough time that day to bike there, it wouldn't have felt that way, but having to park in the visitor parking. Or either that or drive around a lot till I found where you could legitimately park. I don't see this being something that a lot of residents take the trouble to come and use. I suppose, you know, if you're going to a concert, you would come over here and eat your picnic before and go back, but in any event, since it's so far from any residences. But all that isn't what you were wanting us to talk about. So it seems like we've got 3 favoring the buried, fully buried, and 2 favoring the semi-buried, or is it really that?
Both of us were, well, at least for me, I was pretty ambivalent between the two. It didn't matter a great amount to me.
I'm fine with it being completely buried. What I was trying to say is if it's going to be partially buried, I think there are opportunities to do something other than a cylinder sticking out of the ground. You know, this could be, you could take advantage of the constraint of a wall to do something neat, but if, I mean, I'm fine if it's buried.
Well, do we think that there's an advantage for keeping both concepts alive?
So I put it out
Does
there.
it make better possibilities in both options?
So I would assume that what really drives the decision about buried or not buried is money. And so that option will always be open once council sees what the budget looks like.
Yeah, that 10% could be used to make it a better park instead of burying it. You know, conceivably.
It depends on what better park means, and I have some comments about that. Go on.
Well,
When
so.
you just to get a ball, when you say 10% of what? I mean, that's,
Relative.
if it's 10% of 100 million, it's different than if it's 10%.
No, it wasn't 100 million. I think the numbers that we had from the siting study was about 10 to 12 million from the draft study. I know that from the recycled water feasibility study update in 2022, it was substantially more. It was like, you know, 26, 27 million. So I don't know, there's kind of a range between the numbers that we've seen, but it's nothing like 100 million. That
Right,
was,
but so 10% is 2 million.
yeah, 2 million or so.
So I suppose, you know, our choices could be pick one or request that both options continue to be on the table.
Can we separate the two and just vote on the top ones first and then vote?
We don't need a vote actually on this one. We were just looking for some
Oh, is that right?
consensus.
Oh, okay.
Yep, yep. So we
Never
got
mind.
that as,
So I think
there's
we have
consensus.
consent.
Can I just add, I mean, I went on a weekend. I don't know if
Mhm.
other people went during a weekday. How do legal employees use that space? Do they walk around? Do they sit and eat? Do they throw a frisbee around? What do people?
There's a lot of folks that walk in between the buildings to get from one place to another. I see a lot of visitors going to the Google Visitor Center and then coming into the park as just a respite and place to go before taking off or entering. And then Google does host some events within the park from time to time through a permit process. So, and yeah, there's general park use, but not a ton. On weekends, you'll see folks with dogs and otherwise.
When I was there on a weekday, there was some kind of team building event going on with like 30 people all running around in funny costumes.
So when I was there, the grassy area in the middle was completely empty. Completely unused. On the edges, there were people. And when you said a better park, I found the positioning of the benches on the hill truly amazing. They're regimented in rows, completely separate, one bench from the other. It looked like a movie about people not talking to each other. Just amazing. So it would be nice when we think about how to design the park, to design it as a place for people to spend time together rather than sitting on a hill facing away from each other. The parking, I had frequently over the years wanted to look at Charles Park and could never find parking. This time I found that there are actually 6 parking areas for the park. And I found them because we had parked somewhere else. And it goes through Google. You wouldn't think that that is a way where there is public parking. And there is something to be said for having little signs saying public parking. Google
Used to
may,
be.
there is now.
Okay.
Google may not be happy with that, but I always thought it was a Google parking lot and that it was blocked. So, I mean, it doesn't hugely feel like a public park. It feels like a Google park.
So, thoughts on, do we want to pick one or do we want to advance both options so we can see what they lead to?
So to me, it seems like the semi-buried is if we have to. Not something that we want to recommend, but obviously if buried just becomes financially impossible, then we'll go to semi-buried and try to figure out some innovative, interesting uses. Let's start from having a park that looks untouched, that looks like a natural area. And then move on to more structured things if we have to. I mean, nothing we say will keep that from happening if it has to happen. If it has to happen, it has to happen. Then it's up to staff to find creative
Yeah,
solutions.
so from our standpoint, it sounds like there's a general consensus for buried. However, should an option or the need or
All black.
the need to look at the half buried, that could consider that, and that is a option of which you would be willing to look at.
I think the consensus is we're looking for whichever solution to be a integrated design solution, not have some independent engineered structure and then a park, but really develop them holistically together. That's.
Well said.
Yeah, with sensitivity to the environment where this is, which is North Bayshore on one side and Google's wonderful plantings on the other side.
Yeah, so we have engaged Google, let them know that this is a future project that we were looking at. They see this as an opportunity as well, so we'll continue that dialogue through the process as we move forward.
So just one addition, so the reservoir itself is actually only part of the park, but when you're looking at redoing the park, will that be the whole park? Like from those poor deodar cedars to the Google? Or is it just that central area?
I believe Google has renovated the southern third of the park.
Yes.
So I think we'll try to integrate as much as we can and to merge the
From that
northern
point.
part of the park to the south.
Okay, but it goes on to, it's a fairly deep part.
So going towards the new Google gradient canopy.
But I mean, it would
Yes.
be nice to have an integrated park at the end of
Yes,
this.
Google's very interested in the pathways of how their employees cross between the two campuses, so we're going to continue to engage in them for thoughts and ideas.
Okay, so it's sounding like we're leaning toward recommending that the design of the whole park be addressed as part of the project, whether or not there's a lot of extensive differences, rehabilitation or what, just to look at what the options are.
That was, yeah. So
So,
I think staff has what we need. Yes, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
all right. All right, so there's no motion needed on this and we'll move on to the next item. It's item 5.2, the community garden update. John, would you like to introduce?
I will let
yourself?
staff get settled first and thank Public Works staff for being here. You bet. Okay.
Thank you.
A few months ago, you as a commission asked for us to just come before you, give you some updates of our community garden program. And so asked staff to prepare some information, and Maureen Grzan-Parachi, Recreation Supervisor, is here, along with Colin James, Recreation Manager. And Maureen will be able to provide you the update.
Very good.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Maureen Grzan-Parachi, Recreation Supervisor with the City of Mountain View. It is my pleasure to present an overview of the City of Mountain View's Community Garden Program. Currently, the Recreation Division oversees 3 community gardens: Willowgate, Latham, and the Senior Center Community Gardens. These gardens serve as vital community assets, offering residents the opportunity to cultivate fresh produce, reduce stress, and connect with their neighbors in a shared outdoor environment. Willowgate Community Garden, our longest running community garden, includes 131 half and full plots. In 2017, we introduced a plot splitting process to allow full plots to be divided into 2 half plots as they become available. This process has been effective in expanding access and alleviating the strain on the wait list. This garden also accommodates a diverse group of gardeners. Some have decades of gardening experience, while others are new to the endeavor. In addition to gardening, Willowgate promotes community engagement through features such as a gardening book exchange, a recently installed sundial, and various community-led gatherings. Communal resources include wheelbarrows, rakes, and spades that are all available for shared use. Reserved for Mountain View residents age 55 and older, the Senior Center Community Garden includes 63 plots, approximately 18 by 6 feet in size. It features a dedicated tool shed for communal access, wheelbarrows, spades, and trowels. The garden also hosts quarterly work days where gardeners collaborate to maintain the communal areas. The senior garden is a supportive environment where older residents can engage in meaningful outdoor activity and connect with one another. Latham Community Garden is our newest addition, opening in 2019, following an approximate $1 million investment. This garden includes 84 plots, 6 of which are raised to meet ADA guidelines, along with 2 sheds that provide access to communal tools. Latham Garden had a little pilot program when it started out, with 10 plots that were dedicated for a 1-year gardening lease. However, due to limited interest, there was only 1 gardener who participated. The program was phased out in 2022, and those plots were reallocated for standard term use. When Latham Garden opened, it took the 2 existing garden wait lists from 220 individuals down to 134. The thing we've noticed is that Latham Garden is very visible along Shoreline Boulevard and has piqued the public's awareness. So we have noticed a significant increase after it opened in the program. The garden socials have become a cherished part of our community gardening experience, building camaraderie and fostering collaboration amongst gardeners. Over the years, these social gatherings have evolved into lively seasonal events where gardeners come together to celebrate, share their harvests, and exchange valuable gardening insights. Beyond the in-person events, gardeners stay connected through online conversations and exchanges on Google Groups. This platform allows members to discuss the gardening tips, troubleshoot issues, and share information on seasonal tasks, creating an ongoing support system. These social opportunities serve as a cornerstone of our community gardening culture, offering opportunities for shared learning, neighbor connection, and the joy of celebrating each other's gardening achievements. The annual work days at the Senior Center Community Garden are a pivotal event for fostering community spirit and maintaining the garden's beauty and functionality. Each year, gardeners come together to care for the shared spaces, contributing their time and their effort to keep the communal areas in top condition. This collective effort not only enhances the physical environment, but also strengthens the bonds amongst the gardeners, creating a shared sense of pride and responsibility. Our newest feature at Willowgate Garden is beautiful and functional, enhancing both its aesthetic appeal and practical value for gardeners is our beautiful sundial, which was created by Willowgate gardener Jeffrey Kaiser. The sundial is located along the south fence, where it has quickly become a unique centerpiece for the garden community. In addition to displaying the time, the sundial incorporates a planting guide based on recommendations from master gardeners. The guide outlines optimal planting times for various crops, serving as a quick reference for gardeners as they plan their seasonal plantings. This edition reflects the creativity and dedication of our gardeners, transforming a simple tool into a resource for all. Looking ahead, in 2025, we will introduce some new initiatives to enhance community engagement and support garden education. A refreshed quarterly newsletter will be launched to share updates on workshops, gardening techniques, and other program information. Additionally, we will continue partnering with local organizations and other city departments to offer workshops relevant to the gardeners, such as composting, winter garden preparation, and plant propagation. City staff anticipate the Parks and Rec strategic plan to confirm the need for additional community garden spaces based on community input and consultant analysis. Looking to the future, there are a significant number of existing capital projects within the Community Services Department. And an additional community garden is not currently programmed into the capital improvement program. In conclusion, the City of Mountain View's community gardens are invaluable assets that extend beyond horticulture. They serve as spaces where residents can share knowledge, build connections, and enrich our community. That concludes this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments? You want to start?
Are there private community gardens? I mean, that's right, because private and community, but are there other gardens throughout the city that the city doesn't operate that you're aware of?
There are some, gosh, why can't I think of the word? Multi-unit homes that do offer community gardens. There's one that you can see off of the Stevens Creek Trail. So there are a number. How many? We don't know.
Thanks.
Question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bryan.
So the one, just when Via goes from the landless part of the trail out, that is so unused. It's kind of heartbreaking to see.
I know. That's the one that I was thinking about. Yeah.
Oh, it's very shady, but I mean, it's just unused, which is. In your report, you were mentioning the cost of if you get a plot, how much you pay annually. I was wondering, like when people can't afford our classes at the recreation classes, they can get the city will subsidize it. Has that happened with the community gardens?
This program is currently not eligible for the financial assistance program.
Really?
Yeah.
Because? Is there a reason?
The financial assistance policy program is limited right now to camps and activities for youth under the age of 18. The community garden program in essence is an 18 and older.
Oh, all right, makes sense. So do we have any idea who actually has the plots? I know any number of people who have very nice homes and very large gardens, but they would like more gardening space. And they have a plot and have had it for many years, whereas there's people who live in apartment buildings who don't have access. Do we have any demographic information?
No, that's not something we ask. And we don't have a prioritization as part of our application and wait list.
All right, is it time for comments or are we doing comments?
I
later?
think we can do it all at once because this is just a informational item.
Okay, so my own preference, maybe the strategic plan can come up with that, is put more emphasis on have more community gardens that are more accessible to people for whom. So $100, did they see 75? I don't remember what.
Depends on your plot size. Yeah, 50 for seniors, $100, $150 if you have a full plot at Willowgate.
Yeah.
Yeah, a number of other cities around us do have a prioritization process, so there is easy benchmarking that we could do.
Maybe we can discuss it when we talk about the strategic plan. There is the another paradigm for community gardens, which is what Soil and Water does, where it's basically a group of people gardening together. So that it's in a city park, but that has always struck me as a very attractive model, where it's not each person on their own plot, but a community working together with people who come when they can and people who are always there, which seems to me an effective way of using our very limited space. Many people working together. My thoughts.
We call that the demonstration garden versus community garden. That's how we
Yes. Yeah.
delineate the use.
Soil and Water being a demonstration.
Yes.
Well, it's very much a community garden.
It is.
It's because
It-
there is a community that works on it.
I absolutely agree with you. It's just our internal way of delineating the two types, not to say that they're not both community. It was Soil and Water that came to us and called it a demonstration garden at the start. And so that's just kind of stayed with us throughout the history of that program.
Renita, in that situation, if you wanted to just grow your own tomatoes and use them for your own use, are you precluded from doing that in that?
And Soil and Water, the group, I participated for several years until COVID kind of got in the way and I stopped going, but there's a core group that's always that is very involved, and then there's people who come less frequently, but the core group decides what to plant, and the planting is together, the buying of seeds is together, the work is together, and the harvesting is together. So if you arrive on a day when tomatoes are being harvested, you get tomatoes, and if you arrive on a day when nothing is harvested, you get nothing. So it's a community. It's not, this is a plot of land, do what you want. We're growing this together, which I find very attractive.
Comments or thoughts, Commissioner Davis?
Yes, and I'll declare not a conflict of interest, it's an alignment of interest. Our household has a plot in the Willowgate Garden. And thank you for the presentation. Everything you mentioned resonates with me. It's truly a social space. It's truly a community activity. It's not biodiversity, but it shares many of the values of basically community engagement with nature and natural process. I think the community garden program is wonderful. What I was looking for out of this is specifically that drive to encourage an increase in community garden availability through the strategic plan process. We might be able to garden with our neighbors, but I tell you, they're a funky group. So although as you were talking about it, I was thinking, well, maybe, if we've got close to 400 people on a waiting list, maybe there's a chunk of the community garden that's a demonstration garden, and you sign up for that first. And if you hang with that, then you go on the list to get your own or something like, I don't know. But I do think a lot of gardeners, it is a community and a social activity, but they also have a lot of preference. You think pickleball and tennis people are picky about their preferences? Garden people are also quite opinionated. So a demonstration garden approach is interesting, but my experience is gardeners want their plots. So I think the program's great. I'd like to see it expanded. I think there's constantly been on a wait list. We waited 7 years for our plot. Sounds like people are still waiting 7 years to get out. So there's community demand there, and as commissioner, I would continue to advocate to make growth for the program. And lastly, as I told Director Marchand, the staff is fantastic. They are great community-facing public service. Smelly, and she knows every person there.
She sure does. 15 years back,
Yeah,
at least.
and so all around compliments to the program, and I'd like to see it expanded, made available to more people, and encourage people that have no other gardening opportunities, a better chance to get a plot. Lastly, I actually think you could raise prices. We would pay more for that. And I also see this, you got a senior garden, which is dedicated to seniors. Then the other two gardens, you have a real price preference for people over 55. As one myself, that's great. I pay a third of what other people pay, and I don't see why that's necessary, really. You've got a dedicated senior place, and like the Latham is predominantly families. Willowgate has maybe a tilt slightly older demographic, perhaps, just casual observation. But in my opinion, you could charge more, and I don't think you need that senior discount as robust as it is. And thank you for your efforts on this.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great program. I've visited them all. I personally think that the Latham Garden is so much better to look at driving by than what was there before. I mean, it's attractive compared to what was there before too. So when everybody's growing there. So, yeah, I'd love to see it expanded. We'll see what happens in the strategic plan. To the extent it could be in locations that are closer to apartment areas, because to me, that's the group that I think really, in my opinion, we should be serving, and they're more likely to jump on it if it was closer to where they live. When you do benchmarking, has there ever been any thought to, hey, you get it for 10 years and then you're out, and if there's a waiting list and you get back into the waiting,
About 10 years, but the city of Santa Clara does have a 3-year. After 3 years, you're off and at the back of the wait list. They still have a growing wait list. Seems to be working from their perspective. I think the gardeners would like longer than 3 years.
Yeah, I don't know what the
Our
number.
1 year short term did not go.
No.
The thing that is a consideration as we go through is we do have some gardeners who have been at Willowgate for 40 some years, and we have some people who've only been for 6 months. So we do have a long history of gardeners.
But I just look at the Latham waiting list, and nobody's ever those people, if you're 300th on the waiting list, you're not getting, you better live to be 95 years old, because so, I don't know whether there might be, I don't know, whether we look into a little bit. And 3 years maybe is too, 5 years, 7 years, and you can get back on the waiting list. I don't know, I guess you got to sort of see how the waiting list progress, but it's a shame we can't be serving more people.
Great, thanks. Well, from my point of view, I think the city's community garden program is wonderful, and I really appreciate the presentation. It gives us a chance to all talk about it. I have applauded the Latham Garden, which I think I was lucky because I knew it was coming and I got in there right as it started. And at that point, there's no waiting list. But I think the solution to the waiting list is to provide more garden spaces. And for that first year of Latham, everybody who wanted a plot was getting one. So that's what I think that should be the goal of the program, is to make it so accessible that people really don't have to wait very long. And I do agree that, the location of other, if we're able to add some new plots, the location is key. It needs to be a little bit more spread out through the city. Because they're most enjoyable when it's close to home. And you're able, because you need to be going there, you know, at least on a weekly basis to, you know, be tending the garden, properly. And if it's far away and, difficult to get to, you know, that's not going to be happening. So, I think it would really be important to be collecting the demographics of the plot holders, and that seems like it'd be easily done with the renewal, since you do have to fill out an application. And then I just wanted to point out, up in Santa Rosa, the nonprofit Land Paths actually has a community garden. I don't know if it's a collaborative, like what we were describing, that you call a demonstration garden. But they're focused on, you know, at-risk youth, people in poverty. They're really taking it to a whole new place, not just growing food, but also kind of growing the people growing the food. So that's kind of an interesting model, and definitely be worth exploring. And in general, I'm super supportive of this. I'm not really sure that the purpose of the fee structure, and it would be nice to understand, are we trying to recover cost? Are we just trying to, that people see it as something that they need to commit to, and that, you know, transaction of payment is what gives the commitment. But I know that the city, you know, CSD takes the fee structure very seriously, so that would be something to look at. I realized that we didn't ask if there was anyone who wished to speak about this item on the online call.
There was not when I looked before. Let me just double check. Nope.
Okay, all right.
Any members of the public?
And then anyone wish to speak about it within the room?
My name is Bill Lambert. I live in the Montaloma neighborhood. I've been there about 20 years. Community gardens are great. My neighbor has a plot at Willowgate, donates tomatoes to the whole neighborhood. Mr. Kaiser is a neighbor of mine also, and his wife gives me Hoyas to grow all over my house. Point is, gardens, as the commission has mentioned, is a great way to build community. I know it's difficult. Having plots closer to where people live so they can walk, I think, especially, nobody's mentioned it, it really opens it up to young people, very young people, going to the gardens, seeing things grow. It also really opens it up to older people who can't necessarily drive. I see people at the Jewish Community Center, how much they love their little plots of land, even though they're on wheelchairs and things like that. You know, it brings joy to their lives. So I know it's challenging, but right now, most people have to drive to go to these plots, and that's something we're trying to get away from in Mountain View very much. So thank you very much. It's a great program.
Thank you. I have one thought, and then I'll, one thing I noticed with the Latham Garden as it was being developed, it was sort of, you know, lacking in, you know, everybody was starting to plant their plants, and we were all going, where are the bees? Where are the birds? But as time went by, there's actually a lot of life in the garden, you know, as compared to, let's say, the streetscape or a city park. You know, there's bees, there's butterflies, there's birds, and they're all just sort of able to live around there. I'm sure there's ground nesting bees. So I do also see it as a piece that we could factor into the thinking about enhancing biodiversity. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just had a question. You know, we talked a lot about, God, we need more, but I mean, is it any easier to find land for a community garden than it is for a park? I mean, I guess it could be smaller and it
I think
could be angled and stuff like, so I'm just, but I mean, are the costs of acquiring?
Same as parkland.
Yeah.
Yeah. So staff recognizes a need just based on the sheer number of people that are interested in the program. We as staff have looked at some of the other areas that the city owns that may not be developed at the moment. A lot of those are closer to existing gardens compared to other areas. So as we move forward, we'll continue to keep an eye out and see where we can find land or if there's an opportunity that as we continue to build out our park spaces.
What's sort of the minimum size acreage wise? Is it like a quarter acre? Is it less than a
Do you remember
quarter?
what
Like a-
Latham was? I want to say Latham was quarter.
I think it was like 0.3.
Yeah. So I would say that's probably the smallest we would want to go. So
The advantage of the community gardens is that they can be accommodated in a long, narrow
Yeah.
space, which.
yeah, some of the areas we looked at that we thought might be viable, just looking at it at grade level. Some of those spaces have existing heritage trees that cast a lot of shadows through the day. And so we have to be, we're cognizant of balance there of existing trees compared to what could be for a community garden.
The sun moves.
Well, it's a perfect situation with some of the utility rights of way that can't accommodate actual trees, but.
In fact, how does SFPUC feel
I
about
was just
community
going to say the
gardens?
same thing.
I don't think we would be able to put a new community garden on SFPUC given their new guidelines.
Well,
And the guidelines are, go away.
They're about that thick.
We used to have a community garden program. They had a designated staff person. I don't know if they do that
So,
anymore.
the senior garden is on the Hetch Hetchy right of way. We were grandfathered in, but given the way that they are moving forward with their permitting process, I would be very surprised if they would allow it at this point. I mean, they're to a point that we can't even have people ride their bike through their property. So. Looks like.
Go ahead, yeah.
That's a direct request, and this occurs to me. So, and I know there's a lot of land acquisition strategies and things like that. Maybe this comes out in the strategic plan, but do parks or the community services kind of maintain a programmatic priority list, pickleball, community, where there's the greatest need programmatically?
No.
Because that would be interesting, parkland comes up and a designer starts designing a park, and you go to the default, well, we got to put a playground and, something. Well, maybe it needs to be something else. Maybe it needs to be a pickleball court or a garden. I just think the city should have some sense of what the recreational priorities are for us to appreciate.
I was just wondering, would we ever think about partnering with the school district, Mr. Lambert's presence? Because I know over at Graham, they have a beautiful, garden in the back there that the kids maintain, but maybe something where with the school district, if there were areas where the local, we're talking about being able to walk from your house. A local group works with the school to create a community garden at some of our schools.
They do have, some of the schools have what they call the living garden.
Living
thing,
class.
Which is a different.
Yes.
And knowing that we have some programs that we work with the school district already, the After the Bell.
We have,
things like
actually,
that.
Beyond the Bell has partnered with Living Classroom at
Yeah.
Crittenden and Therkoff to incorporate it into their programs. So yes.
But that's more instructional for kids on how to grow and they sort of follow it. It's not,
Go ahead, we asked you. How can we not listen to your response?
it's not people coming into the.
Well, as you probably know, certainly John Marchant knows, what the school district is in the middle of a greening program with all these schools and thinking about how we can do things like this. So I would really suggest you reach out to Dr. Rebecca Westover, who is managing that project. And, I think she'd be glad to, incorporate that. I think the difference is we're primarily right now thinking about just focusing on on the kids in the schools and not working with the community to open this up. So I think that's what you could bring to the table with fresh ideas and how you could help out with that. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, ideas, comments from the commission?
Thanks for the review.
Kids do have families.
Exactly. Okay, so let's move on to item 5.3, which is the 2025 Parks and Recreation Commission meetings.
So each year around this time, we come forward and we are asked to have the commission approve the schedule for the upcoming year. You can see the dates scheduled are typically the second Wednesday of the month, except for the first month of January, to give staff some time to come back and regroup and be ready for a commission meeting. And so we are asking the commission to approve the proposed 2025 commission meeting schedule.
So I think we do need a motion and
Yes,
a
please.
vote on this. Well, so is there any questions that the commission has? Alrighty, no questions. Would anyone like to comment on this item? Nobody online?
I'll make a motion then.
All right. To
approve the proposed 2025 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting schedule.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Can I get a vote, please?
Commissioner Mitchner.
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant.
Yes.
Commissioner Felios.
Yes.
Vice Chair Davis.
Yes.
Chair Summer.
Yes. All right, so we, everybody put those on your calendars. Now we're on to item 6, commission staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports.
I'm going to turn it over to the folks over there. And whatever priority you want to go in. Come on.
I'm Colin James, Recreation Manager. How's everybody doing?
Good.
So it's the holiday season, if you like it or not. So we have, on Friday, we have the Teen Center 10th anniversary, from 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. We're gonna have inflatables, ice cream, mini golf, games, giveaways. So come on by and celebrate 10 years of the view. And then we have breakfast with Santa on December 7th, 9 a.m. at the community center. And then community tree lighting, Monday, December 9th, 5:30 to 8:30. Santa pictures, holiday performances, train rides, LED games. And then also we have started collecting Santa letters. So put your wishes down, come on by, drop it off, and maybe Santa will grant you your wish this year. So that will go through December 6th. Any questions on those? Good? All right.
All right, thank you.
Very efficient.
Good evening, Brenda Sylvia, Assistant Community Services Director. Magical Bridge Playground is cruising right along. We are expected to be completed sometime in December, so by the end of the year. Evelyn Park construction has started. The walls have been poured and the electrical equipment storage unit has been established. This will be the first Mountain View Park to be maintained by all electric equipment, so we're very excited. That park is expected to be completed in spring of 2025. Villa Park, we are in the final design phase, but this is taking a little bit longer than we anticipated due to costs. Staff is evaluating the design and we're determining some cost-saving strategies as we speak. Tree plantings, the urban forestry team in partnership with Canopy is assisting with planting 10 trees at Magnolia Park this Friday as part of the Leadership Mountain View program. And biodiversity, I have all kinds of updates on that one. Canopy hosted a booth at the Monster Bash event in October, where they promoted the survey for the Biodiversity and Urban Forest Project. We had 80 residents take the survey, so that was really great for being at a Halloween event. So they had really cool cookies that were given out. We held the final community workshop last Thursday, November 7th. We had approximately 35 stakeholders. It was a great night full of really good in-depth discussions. As part of the community engagement, we're partnering with a science teacher at Therakoff School. She reached out, very curious about the biodiversity plan. We met with her. She'd like to engage her students. So we will be having her students perform a nature walk audit. They will provide their feedback and their input on biodiversity and trees in Mountain View. And then we hope to incorporate some of those ideas, those drawings, outcomes, pictures, all those things into the plan. So we're really looking forward to that. And the survey is still open. So far, we've had 300 completed surveys. Canopy will host another booth at the tree lighting event on December 9th to make the final push for the surveys. We will also be bribing kids again with light up tree necklaces. We're shooting for, we're hoping for 500 surveys, which would be great for this kind of a project. So we had such a great response. Canopy was all on board with that. So looking forward to that. Any questions? Okay, thanks.
At our last meeting, I had some positive news about the Aquatic Center. We continue to work with our contractor and others to get all the equipment speaking to each other and appropriate water flow. So keep your eyes and ears open for a future opening. Not sure if we're going to make it by the end of the calendar year at this point, but more to come. There was a call with all involved today to make sure everyone is working in sync and doing everything they can to find what's going on. So doing the best there. And then just looking forward to next month, we will return with the 2 tree appeals that were scheduled for, that was October. So those will be coming back in December. And with that, I'm done.
Commissioners have anything for now? So I will be stepping down for one of the tree appeals because it's a neighbor. So we will get to practice being the chair for that item. And great. And other than that, I think we're ready for adjournment. So hereby adjourned.